Our next speaker will be Mike Smith, talking about Asimina hybrid breeding in North Florida. I have a short announcement. Somebody let me know. I can't tell what this is. It's some kind of gray or silver Honda SUV or truck that looks like it's parked back here that's blocking where the vendors need to come in and set up. So if that's anybody that's in here, if you could move your vehicle, it's a silver Honda with, it looks like Missouri plates. So anyway, so next will be Mike Smith with Asimina hybrid breeding in North Florida. There you go. And you can either talk in this mic, or if you like to walk around, you can use that one. And then that's, that big button. Those four ones, and this little button go. You don't have to do it all day.
Okay. All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Mike Smith. I live in Gainesville, Florida. I've been there for 10 years working as an environmental professional. And I met the pawpaw in my 30s at a landfill, measuring groundwater. And I started noticing all these great native plants, which the pawpaw was one of them. And that looks about like the first pawpaw I ever saw in my life, right there. And then I went backwards and went all the way back to triloba. But these are the first pawpaws I really got to know, and there are 12 of them in Florida. And so I have to, before I get to what I'm doing with my hybrids right now, I got to introduce all 12 of them, so I got to go really fast. All right. So here's a list of 12. Angustifolia, Incana, Minnesota, Obovata, Parviflora, Pulchella, Pygmea, Reticulata, Rugelli, Spatulata, Tetramera, and Triloba, of course. And down at the bottom is a bunch of hybrids that people have named because they've found them a lot in the wild. This is the best website for learning about all the pawpaw species, the University of South Florida Plant Atlas, the genus Asimina. And it'll show you county by county where these occur. And if it's not endangered, they will actually show you where they found their specimens, and you can go back to that exact spot and find them there still. And hopefully you don't do anything bad to them. But the endangered ones are redacted, their location data. All right, and here is a kind of outdated map, but you see up there is all of Asimina. Down here is Triloba, which everybody knows, and Parviflora only goes along the coastal plain. And then everything else is pretty much in Florida and into Georgia, too. And there are two missing from here because they were reclassified from a different genus, Durangothamnus, and Asimina Minnesota was just recently discovered, so it didn't make this map. So here are the 12 species again, Triloba parviflora, the 4 that go to Georgia, Alabama, and then half of all pawpaw species are only in Florida. And why Florida? Oh boy, that's a long story. So the whole Ananaceae family spread around the world when the Arctic was tropical. And then they got to America, and then the ice ages happened 18,000 years ago, and seemed to trap all of the common ancestors of pawpaws in that little scrub area of Florida. And see, it's cut off by dry steppe, a bunch of taiga. So that's probably why pawpaws are stuck where they are and why a lot of the Florida ones are like they are, because Florida is still a lot of scrub. And the Triloba is the one that seemed to adapt to the cold weather and moved back up as the glaciers retreated. So there's a lot of papers you can go into with that, and they're really fun to read, but they're very long. So you could do a whole presentation about that. And so current Florida looks like this. That pale green in the middle is very deep sand. It's old dunes from a whole lot of marine deposition. It's not nice, silty river sediment. It is just pure beach sand. So you'll see pictures about the growing conditions there. It is pretty rough. And then down in the corner there is what the coastal plain looks like up north, where it's a pine savanna. It's not really a forest, it's a savanna. And pawpaws love that open understory. Here are our USDA growing zones, mostly 9 is where pawpaws live, 10 is too hot. They go dormant and then they never wake up because they don't get enough hours. I have friends in St. Pete, and they've tried and failed every time. But they seem to do just fine in zone 9 as long as they get watered. Whoop, skipped one. Whoops, there we go. A big factor that Florida pawpaws have that Triloba does not is they are fire dependent. That is the fire interval of the United States. Down in Florida, it's 2-year intervals between wildfires. And that's not now, of course, but in geological history, that's how it was. And so that comes up a lot, that 2-year interval. And you see up in a lot of the coastal plain, and even in Kentucky, interval is around 8 years, 6 years, which kind of coincides with when triloba flowers. And here we go, the scrub pawpaw. It's a typical one right there. Terry Peterburgo bred all the pawpaw species in Leesburg, Florida. That's where my first triloba ever came from, was all the way down by the villages. And it's still growing right now to this day. It's made fruit for 4 years in a row. Tastes great, but it's kind of small. So that one she's holding right there is a typical dwarf or pygmy pawpaw. And that's its maximum height, a foot tall, and its roots just keep on going. I'm sure she didn't even get all of them. And you notice how thick those roots are. They're like starchy potatoes. Okay, here we all know about a triloba. So that's just its range up there, Apalachicola River. They probably floated down there from the mountains, and they still exist there now. I saw one a couple weeks ago near Florida Caverns State Park in Mariana County. And that's what they look like in Florida. There's one planted by University of Florida, not looking too great. Hasn't been taken care of very well. This is my friend Mac Tyner's yard, front yard right there. It's hard to see the pawpaw on the front because there's a gigantic avocado behind it. But he reliably gets pawpaws every year, shares them with me, and he is my source of pollen for breeding with hybrids usually, because I don't have that many triloba trees of my own. Here are some of my triloba trees of my own. On my left, that's my one I got from Petro's Pawpaws in Leesburg, and here's one I planted in the open field. They were doing pretty great. They were growing well, as long as they had water, but the well broke, so you know how that goes. And then parviflora, small flower pawpaw. A lot of people have seen these, and they are restricted to the coastal plain. And they're a lot like triloba, just smaller in most ways. And here they are in Florida. They grow very low, definitely pollinated by ants. I don't know what else can get in there. I tried hand pollinating with these, I just couldn't get a paintbrush in there. And all right, now we get to the good stuff. My favorite, the slim leaf pawpaw, Asimina angustifolia. There's a lot to read there. They usually get 6 feet tall. The one big thing about Florida pawpaws, they bloom on new growth. After the leaves start coming out, then they develop flowers and start blooming on that new growth. And I've seen this one the most. I've worked in that area, and I've encountered flowers, 3 or 4 petals as usual. It goes all the way up to 27. They have a really, really variable morphology. Here's what they look like, their environments. A lot of sand. They seem to coexist pretty well in pastures because pasture ranchers, they can't seem to get rid of them. There are papers about how to get rid of these, and people just keep failing because their root system is so robust, herbicides can't get to all of them. So that's a good thing for them. They survive. They like the understory too, between pine trees, harkening back to their pasture, their open longleaf pine pasture days. And they will cohabitate with modern timber planting practices, which is also a good way for them to survive. Here's a close-up of those flowers. I think they have some of the biggest flowers alongside big flower pawpaw, and they are very variable. They have a lot of maroons, like the triloba, but they always have a lot of white going on. And I think that one in the middle might be the first one I ever saw in my life. And here they're pollinators. A lot of pollinators in Florida. We do not have a problem with that because we have more bugs, but also the flowers are just way bigger and smellier and attractive. See, the one on the left is the bee-like beetle. That is actually its butt right there. Its head is in the flower eating something. And they are covered in hairs like bees, and they do a pretty good job. I do not see any shortage of fruit set in these wild pawpaws. And I don't know what that bumblebee was doing there, but I've seen that twice. And up close to those petals, that maroon part seems to have a lot of the fermented smells, and the white part has more of a magnolia aromatic smell. And a lot of zebra swallowtails in Florida. They are pretty common. And here are the weird flowers I've seen. That one on the right is 27 petals. The one on the left was in the same area. I'm not sure if it was stress or what. I have seeds from this. I'm growing them out to see if it happens again. And here are their fruit, pretty small, enjoyed by tortoises. I'm not sure what else eats them because a lot of times under these bushes I just see a pile of dried out old fruit that has not gone anywhere. And those are some of the plumper fruits of slim leaf. They don't get that much bigger. And I've collected a lot of them. I've probably eaten more scrub pawpaws than anybody. Some of them taste pretty good, actually, but there's just not much meat to them. Look at that seed to flesh ratio. So later on, that is my major goal, is to get those fruits bigger and, decent. Their flavor can be really good. I've had pina colada. I've had some that taste like a sugar apple, other anonas. But some of them are very bad, taste like a potato, all over the place. They're just bitter. And there's that fire adaptation. These are after some burns by Florida Wildlife, and they come back really quickly and then flower after a burn. Spatulata, as far as I can tell, is a lot like Angustifolia, except they have a wider margin to the end of their leaves. Here's some that I've grown. Flower looks similar. They have more white flowers than purple, but I've seen purple on their flowers too. And that's in my backyard. I actually transplanted that one successfully. Very, very surprising that it lived, and it's still at that house. Incana is a fun one. It buds on old growth, like triloba, and it's small, but it's called the woolly pawpaw. Look how fuzzy it is. And that sticks around for a long time until it gets really hot, and then the leaf turns into a more leathery texture. Or sometimes they stay fuzzy all year round, and they hybridize with all the other pawpaws, and so you can get a fuzzy obovata, a fuzzy slim leaf. They all mingle, and I can't tell them apart a lot of times. But if it's woolly, it's an incana. And they like really sandy environments. I think that woolliness helps them survive the heat and the UV. And that's a gopher tortoise burrow. They like to eat those too. And they flower very heavily. They bloom in old growth, but they bloom a lot. And they usually just have white flowers, and they have a more magnolia-like aromatic. They don't have much fermentation smells. Yep, and bugs love them too. Here's their fruit. They're usually on the starchy side. These are the worst tasting ones, I think. A lot of taste like feet, cheese, bitter. But I have had a few good ones, so you just have to keep eating them to find out, really. And I'm always looking for volunteers every harvest season. Come eat all these pawpaws with me, because I can only eat so many. Then actually, I'm going to go back to that one, that cross section of the fruit. The peel on all these Florida pawpaws is actually pretty thick. You cut it in half, and you can scoop it out like a pretty sturdy pudding cup. And I think that skin really helps them from desiccating and lets those seeds survive. And the seeds have a very thick seed sac. I forget the real name, botanical name for it. But it's a really thick layer that you have to it's a thick membrane you have to really hard to get off of. A pressure washer will do it. But yeah, doing it by hand is pretty hard, because especially the woolly pawpaws have a really huge, I think it's a helium that holds that membrane to the seed, and it holds it really tight. It's hard to get off of there. So cleaning these seeds. A-R-I-L. A-O-I-R-L? Oh, aril. Oh, okay. Wow. And then I really like this one because it's so small and impossible to kill. Flowers on new growth as well, and its flowers are really cool. That's as big as they get. That's their maximum size, so foot tall. They grow, in terrible conditions as well, pure sand. And their flowers are great. They're fully purple sometimes. And I think they smell the best out of any of them. They smell like a jelly donut. Usually very fruity, very, a lot of fermentation, baked goods smells. I could smell them all day. And they smell very strong. I could smell that little plant over there from, 50 feet away sometimes. Because it's very hot and there's a breeze, and it can carry that smell pretty far. And these flowers get really weird too. Only 2 petals. One of these flowers is over on the Gulf Coast, and one of them is in Central Florida. So I've seen this expressed really far apart. Yeah, you see that irrigation tube on my farm, which was it was an old citrus grove that got left to go feral. It was pure camphor and water oak that I had cleared and scraped up with a rake by a front end loader. And the pygmy pawpaws survived all that, came back and flowered. So they are some tough little plants. And here's some more of their flowers. These are probably hybrids with slim leaf. This pygmy pawpaw somehow was 6 feet tall, but it had that typical pygmy pawpaw flower. So it's just variation is all over the place in the Florida pawpaws. Oh, that one snuck in there. This is the big flower pawpaw next. This is another one of my favorites. It's one of the largest ones. It can be a small tree. And it has maybe the biggest flowers up there with slim leaf pawpaws. And it's pretty easy to find because of those flowers. And its range is, a lot of good roads run through it. This is their habitat. It's very, very sandy. I think they like the most sand. Very deep old sand dunes next to bodies of water like Lake George, Lake Popka. And here they are in the woods, like long, spindly branching patterns. Yep, and here are some in my backyard over on the left. Here's another one at one was purposely planted in a parking lot. And here they are. See how sandy it is? That's their fruit fall. And sometimes they have a nice orange color on their fruit. I'm not sure if that's actual color break or if it's just from getting blasted by the sun. But they won't dry out for a week. Maybe they can sit there and wait for me to pick them up. Then that one on the right is in a nice botanical garden. Here's their fruit. You see how thick that skin looks up there. And very starchy. I've had some of these taste like plantains, pumpkin pie. I'm sure the texture helps with that. But sometimes like a canistel or egg fruit. Some very kind of cheesy, eggy textures and flavors. They're more savory. Some of them have like a little lime tint, like a pumpkin pie with lime. They have very interesting flavors. Reticulata, this is the one Neil was talking about, that I have seen the least of, actually. There's a couple that I've encountered repeatedly, but I wouldn't have picked them out to breed with because they're kind of small and they bloom on old growth. They don't have that many unique qualities compared to those other pawpaws. And here are their flowers, nice little white things. I haven't seen them get as big as obovata or slimleaf, but I haven't seen very many of them. Now we're getting the endangered stuff. 4-petal pawpaw, only in one little sand dune area in West Palm Beach, which is a shame because they are one of the bigger ones. Supposedly, these are some old records. They've been actually researched the most out of all the scrub pawpaws because they're so close to a population center and conservation efforts have been so intense. And the obovata blooms on new growth on the ends of the branches. These bloom on the sides of their branches. And that's what they look like. I haven't actually seen these, except I did grow them in my backyard from seed once. And then as soon as I planted them, they died. So I haven't seen them since. So unless it says otherwise, all these pictures are ones that I've taken. But these are from some literature. All right, now another endangered one. I've seen this one, Asimina rugeli. It's a really small one. It only occurs in another coastal sand dune area. And it has very strange flowers. It did not used to be in the Asimina genus because it looks so different, but some genetic testing found that it should be with the other Asiminas, and they will hybridize as well. They have these weird little fleshy flowers like a lot of other Anonas. And another one that used to be another Direngothamnus, the Pulchella, is also endangered. Most of it's down by Naples, but there's also some by Orlando for some reason. And they have these flowers that do not look like pawpaw flowers either. They're nice, symmetrical. That's why it's called the pretty false pawpaw, because they have pretty flowers. And then this is the newest one, only described in 2010. It looks a lot like a slimleaf pawpaw, but if you remember where the slimleaf pawpaws, they were way up north. And this one is way down south, a couple hundred miles away. And they are not classified as endangered yet because there hasn't been another study on endangered species. So they will make it there if there ever is another one. And they bud on new growth as well. They see those very slim leaves, but they have a lot more curve to them. And their flowers are smaller and pointier. And I have seen these guys. These are my pictures. I just looked them up and drove over there, and they were there. And their fruit are very small as well, but there's so few of them, it's hard to get a good idea of their potential. And that is a big problem with Florida pawpaws right now, is they need to have a lot of conservation efforts, because where pawpaws grow, they only grow in upland habitats, which can be a rare commodity in Florida, where you have a lot of lakes and wetlands. So a lot of the pawpaw habitats get turned into housing developments or timber, which pawpaws can survive in the timber to a degree, but it's not their native habitat. All right, so I'm going to get to a nice summary of my observations here. Propagation by seed, their roots are really brittle, even compared to triloba. If you try to dig one up, you're just going to snap the roots and it'll die. Hardiness, they don't survive hard freezes. The incana and angustifolia, I see them grow up north, but they still die back in the winters and come back, kind of like their fire response. They are prone to just dying back and starting over from those big roots. Their growth is usually very slow because I don't know if that's because of their poor soils, or that's just how they go. But after a fire or a clear cut, they can grow 6 feet in a couple of weeks. They can grow really, really fast when they want to. Their blooms, much larger, more fragrant than triloba. I'll go over those in particular in a bit, but yeah, they smell good. I've never smelled a bad smelling one except for parviflora. And we'll see why in a little bit. And they bloom in only 2 years from seed. When you remember back to the 2-year fire interval, they have to get a nice bloom out and fruit out before the fire comes and resets all their progress. So they have to somehow get that seed to take root before the next fire. So that is why they bloom really fast and on new growth. And the pollination, it's pretty rampant with all the bugs and smells going on. So we're looking at the fruit now. The taste is just all over the place. I really can't make any definitive comments just because there's so many of them. Just the texture I know is mostly starchy. And their size, mostly small, sometimes as small as a peanut. But Obovata I've seen 3 inches long, as big as a small triloba, so there is some possibility there. You're not starting from absolutely nothing. Fruit development period, they develop very fast, 4 months, 5 months. They usually flower in February or March, and then some fruit starts to drop in June, but then some Obovata are still dropping late August. So there's a wide range there as well. Seeds, lots and lots of seeds. I have thousands of seeds without even trying very hard. Perishability, I think their skin is thicker. I think they could last a little longer, but I haven't tested it much. All right, here are the smells. This is a really, really cool article in the Florida Native Plant Society, very great resource. And I just totaled them up at the bottom. The pygmy pawpaw has the most different smell chemicals of any of the pawpaws, and that's why I liked it so much all along. Woolly pawpaw was a surprise on this one because I always just only got kind of waxy magnolia notes, but you can see it's missing fermentation products up there, so that's why. And the pygmy has fermentation, and it has all the different kinds of compounds, so that's why I probably like the smell the most. Obovata is up there too, and so Obovata has big flowers, good smelling flowers, good size. I think I want to work with that one the most. And Angustifolia actually has not very many smell compounds, but I always think it smells like Fruit Loops. So I was surprised because I always think it smells great. So maybe those aliphatics and terpenoids are doing a lot of the work there. And you look at triloba, and it's pretty much mostly the fermentation, which is what people say. It smells like fermenting something. And so here's my choices here: Angustifolia or Spatulata, since I think they're kind of the same. Obovata, Pygmia, because those flowers are great, and that would have some really good dwarfing of Triloba because they're so small. And I really like the woolliness of Ancana, and it has those strong smells. And I'm not sure if blooming on new growth would be a good or a bad thing. I think it'd be a good thing, especially like your flowers wouldn't get hurt by freezes, but you'd have to have them be cold hardy in the first place. So there's a whole lot of traits here that I'm not sure how many of them are useful. Primary desired trait are those flowers. That's the biggest improvement they can have over Triloba. They bloom sooner and bigger. You could maybe use that fire response to force blooms, have a kind of a semi-annual crop, just cut them back every time and make them come back. I'm not sure how big of fruit you could get that way, but it could be an option. The pygmy pawpaw I have seen bloom 3 times in a year, actually. So it was on a roadside, and it just kept on getting mangled and coming back, and it fruited twice, actually, in that year. And that was my original setup when I started all this, how many years ago? 7 years ago? And that's when I discovered that those fruited in only 2 years from their sad little existence in milk cartons. And so here's a little chronology of that. My original plantings that I just got from all sorts of other fruit explorers. And first year, second year, and then flowers. And as part of this series, Tetramera was in there and fruited after 2 years. Slim leaf pawpaws were in there, and Obovata was in there. So they all had that capability. And just another summary. Bigger flowers, better pollination, And I didn't talk about drought tolerance. Look at that leaf over there. They are very leathery, very hardy. They can take a lot. I never see any sun damage on them. Well, I've grown a lot of triloba now, and they can get cooked pretty fast. I think they should be grown in a lot of shade in Florida. But the Florida pawpaws, they can take as much sun as you can throw at them. New flavors might be good, might be bad. We'll see. Yeah, here's the difficulties. The seedy fruits, the wild adaptations might make any graft failures happen a lot because they choose to die back under stress, back to their little tuber. Reduced vigor, if you're not doing that, could be seen. They prefer sand. If you try to plant them anywhere with richer soil, more moisture, they will get root rot and die. I think that's what happened to my tetramera, is it died of wet roots. Even though I had a very sandy backyard, it wasn't as sandy as they wanted. Very delicate roots. Not much research on these things, except for Native Plant Society, and some people grow them for the flowers, but even that is very rare. And another thing that's not on here is when you're growing these for breeding in an orchard, or even if you're trying to grow triloba in Florida, you're going to have these wild pawpaws present everywhere, and the pollinators are flying everywhere, so there's going to be a serious cross-contamination problem in Florida growing any pawpaws, because like that pygmy that popped up on my future farm, it was there and it was just waiting there, so if I had planted some really nice triloba there for breeding, it would get some of that pygmy pawpaw seed in there. And here I am so far. I got some nice tall trees already after I started lightening my soil heavily with perlite and sand. On the left is some nice Louisiana pawpaw seed from Blaze Pizzold, and that does really great in my climate. In the middle is triloba and obovata, and it seems to be keeping up with pure triloba. And triloba angustifolia is doing great too, so it definitely, the triloba vigor transferred, and the leaves are definitely thicker, more firm, and a thicker surface to resist drying out. My hybrid program, I think, I'm just getting started, but I can keep it going forever because I have an unlimited source of Florida pawpaws, and I can keep on getting good cultivars from up north, and I can plant them in the ground, and I don't have to worry about freezes. So I got that going for me at least. And another advantage I have here is that the shorter bloom time, if I can get these hybrids going and I can get those shorter blooms, that's a huge advantage of shortening my breeding intervals. So here I am so far. It's really just the beginning. I don't have any flowers to show yet. Those are just 1 year old, so expect more to come. I just got this nursery space last year, so there's still a lot more space for it. And then I have 3 acres I can plant on if I can get yeah? What? Okay, yeah, that was it. Big thank you to, University of South Florida, Florida Native Plant Society, and there's a lot of people that have helped me out over the years. Blaze set me up from New Orleans, Maru Foundation, my new nursery spot at the Nightjar. It's actually a church. So that's where I am right now. Thank you for listening.
All right, thank you very much. That was really interesting. I think we don't have time for questions, but I'm sure he'll be around throughout the day if anybody wants to chat about your research. Yeah, it was interesting, but thank you.